Welcome to the Back in Business podcast. I'm business writer and broadcaster and now podcaster Mickey Clark. Who says you can't teach an old dog new tricks?
That's we've managed to teach you in quite a long time. He has been in the business for a very, very long time, let me tell you. And I'm small business journalist Liz Barkley, and I've missed talking to you over the summer. I've missed insulting you over the summer.
I've missed listening.
What have you been up to?
No, we got up to Yorkshire last week, and it rained. That's all I'm going to say about it.
So the staycation has done you the world of good. That's why you're looking a slightly rusty colour, I suspect.
Oh yeah.
So while you've been in Yorkshire, we've been having some really interesting conversations. We've talked to quite a few politicians. We've talked about what's happening in the pub trade, and you were there for that one, which was a really good conversation. But then we talked about family business and how important they are to the economy. We talked about the food and drink sector, and I hadn't realised just quite how important that is to the UK economy. And we talked about inclusive entrepreneurship, as in, you know, all sorts of people from all sorts of different backgrounds, people with disabilities, inclusivity in entrepreneurship and how important that is too. So we've got a really good raft of discussions on the website, and we're going to have a lot more as the autumn goes on. So Mickey, glad we're back.
Yes, a lot of eyes focused on Rishi Sunak and the proposals that he's got to put forward. The furlough schemes ends at the end of October. He's already given a relief to the hospitality and leisure industry as far as business rates are concerned. But when you think of how big an employer that industry is, more needs to be done. And I think that's something he's aware of. But whether it's going to be enough and what shape it's going to take, of course, is anybody's guess.
Well, the question, of course, is what's he's going to do in the budget, because I think that's what we're all waiting for now, is it not? And maybe Simon McVicker can tell us more. Simon, it's great to be back on the podcast. I know you've been further afield. You went to Greece, you lucky devil.
I managed to get to Ski Athos of all places, which was only a week ago, but it seems like a century ago now.
So as our director of public affairs, you've got your finger on the pulse. What do you think's going to happen? What's Rishi got up his sleeve?
I keep thinking of that opening from Richard III. Now is the winter of our discontent, because the summer may be a gorgeous summer, but our winter is going to be hell, it looks like. We look as if we're rattling towards a second wave. The government seemed to be heading towards a second lockdown of some sort or other. I think it's panic in government, to be honest. I don't think they really know what to do. And the figures on jobs that came out this week from the ONS are nothing short of disastrous. So the Chancellor has a major problem, and I'm not sure he really knows what to do. We do know, he says, the furlough scheme as it is will end, but he has been strongly urged by people like the CBI to try and bring in a furlough scheme Mark II, which would probably look at those sectors in the economy which are in dire straits, such as, you know, entertainment, hospitality, retail, that sort of stuff. I mean, overall, the economy is growing from a very low base, of course. The Bank of England had a report yesterday saying that the growth was satisfactory. However, they warned that a second wave would prove disastrous. And in fact, I think it was the starkest warning from the bank we've had so far. Some of that optimism. I think, I'm afraid to say, the outlook this autumn is not great.
You're full of doom, gloom and despondency. But do you think that if we get a job retention scheme or a wage subsidy scheme or something in the budget, that will be enough? And will it be soon enough, even? Because we don't even have a date for the budget yet.
Well, no, and some people are thinking that the budget might be delayed until the Chancellor sees the full scale of the economic disaster he's facing. Um, this is a really tough one because, I mean, he has already spent billions of pounds. And, I mean, basically, if you haven't gone back to work, if you've been furloughed and haven't gone back to work, your job's probably gone. So should the money go into job creation, new jobs, helping companies retain employees, like reducing national insurance, maybe that's where the money will go rather than a furlough Mark II. Although I think for certain sectors, as I said, I think without a furlough Mark II, they're just going to go under.
Mickey, this is more or less what you were saying in your blog yesterday.
Yeah, I think there are several things that Simon's brought up. First of all, those unemployment numbers were next to useless. They didn't tell us the true situation of how things are at present, because the furlough scheme has managed to smooth everything over to make it look as though it's a lot more reasonable than it really is. And we certainly don't know the position for employment 3 to 4 months' time before Christmas. Christmas is always a great time to sack people. It's the choice of every employer. And also, the Chancellor, I think what he's veering towards now is away from the furlough scheme. And I'm worried about that because Germany and France have both extended theirs. I think France is 2022 now, Germany 2021. And he's going down the route of cutting business taxes and providing other sources to make it easier to employ people. But if businesses are going into local lockdowns at a rate of knots, that's not going to be much good to any employer.
Yes. I think that, I mean, we do know some things, Mickey. We know that there's some 700,000 people have come off payroll between March and August. We know that most jobs out there are part-time or contract. There's not many full-time jobs. And the CPI had a survey out yesterday that shows 46% of their members will be looking to cut their staff numbers in the next couple of months. Now, that still means that 50-odd% will be taking on, but what they say and what they do may be two different things. So I think we do know that the job situation is really looking pretty poor. And of course, this is going to have a major knock-on effect onto the economy, onto small businesses, especially when they're consumer-facing, trying to survive in this climate.
Simon, on that point, do you think it is possible that if the bigger businesses don't have the confidence to spend money hiring people now, and they don't know what's going to happen in the economy, that they may look for, as you say, temporary people to fill in, so that people who are self-employed freelancers may get a bigger share of the job market temporarily?
Well, I think you might be right. It was that way in 2008, but I was just looking at the ONS stats on self-employment, and the number of people who are self-employed is dropping dramatically. It's down 155,000 in the last month, and the August figures showed a drop of 238,000. So it seems that people who were self-employed, because they got no help from the government, are now leaving self-employment. And I mean, where are they going to go if there's no jobs?
Onto
universal credit.
That's what I was just about to say. Onto universal. We're talking about starting up in a business today or going self-employed, and we've got two business people here who've done that, set up their own businesses. But Simon, Mickey and I've been self-employed forever because, frankly, nobody'd employ us. They might give us temporary contracts, but I'm not sure they'd actually employ us on a permanent basis. But you yourself have moved from being employed to being self-employed. How did you find that transition? Because it isn't for everybody, is it?
No. The thing about it is, I did it just as the lockdown was happening, so that's not exactly the best time to do it. I think I'm now falling into your category. No one would want to employ me, but I think it's bloody hard. And it's not for everybody, and I mean, starting up a business is a very particular thing. It's very niche, and the vast majority of people that go on the lose their jobs will not be doing that. As simple as that. Uh, but more creative people, more entrepreneurial people, it is an opportunity, but it's a very rough market out there. So unless you've got a really good idea, it's going to be tough.
Well, we've got two people with really good ideas to talk us through it.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do people go in to start their own business or go freelance through choice, or is it they're forced to because of a change of style or the fact that they're unemployed?
Well, I know this, Mickey, from my old job. And most people who go self-employed do it because they're made redundant.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk to Christian Kerr, who runs AI Core, and to Tim Johnson, you've been on the podcast before. And Tim, you've set up several businesses, and you're both now about to set up businesses again. Just give us a quick 2-sentence on what you're doing, Christian, and then Tim from you.
Sure. Thank you, Liz and Mickey. A pleasure to be here again. And basically, we're starting a company called Schoolify. It's an online platform that lets anyone run live courses and live classes and get paid for them. So the real vision for us is to enable anyone to build their online school, just like you mentioned. What we started just in January of this year was we started building AI Core, which is a vocational school specializing in AI. And we're looking to make that more possible for other people to start their business in the education space.
So there's innovation for you, Tim. What are you up to?
Yeah, thank you, Liz, and thank you, Simon, as well, to join the podcast. I'm starting an online business coaching platform without the razzmatazz of the snake oil salespeople, back to basics, if you like, called Business How To. It does what it says on the tin. And the idea there is a complete overview, as opposed to a lot of people out there are selling their silver bullet solution, which looks at one aspect of business as being the answer to everything, and when it isn't. So Simon was saying how difficult it is to set up a business, and it's quite difficult because there are so many different aspects to a business, and actually you've got to get them all kind of working in some shape or form just to get going. You can certainly build and improve it as you go along, but you can't, and a lot of it is luck and timing, about being in the right time at the right place for the market and the team that's around you, to be able to make something happen. I mean, I've had some spectacular successes in the past, built 2 multi-million-pound businesses from startups in different industries, and had some epic failures as well. So it's sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Maybe you'll tell us about the epic failures, because we'll probably learn more from those than we will if you tell us about the successes.
Is it the financing that's the problem? I mean, this is not, let's put it bluntly, this is not the best time in the world to start up a new business, is it?
Yeah, I mean, going back to something Christian was saying earlier, I'm not a great fan of getting external finance for your business, because at early stage you've got your valuations are tiny, and so investors take huge chunks of your business for peanuts. And so no, I'm in favour of bootstrapping, because at the end of the day, a business, if you can keep your overheads down and hang on until you get the growth. I mean, a business should make money. That's what it's for. I mean, obviously, it's got wider purposes than that. But if a business isn't making money, then it's not really a business. Now, obviously, the big tech Ubers of the world and all those people that don't make money and are valued at billions, that model's not available to every Joe Blow on the street. And you've also got the thing of being and Christian was saying earlier, what is a startup? Is that a one-man band trying to be a freelancer, sort of, trying to offer his sort of done for services that he was as delivering as an employee, or is it a group of people looking for an IPO or a multitude of things in between.
Ooh, there's some business jargon creeping in here.
Initial public offering, making a fortune on the stock market, like so few people actually manage to do.
Yeah, Christian, before we started the recording rolling, and I'm really sorry because we've got some delays on Mickey's internet line this morning. But before we started recording, Christian, you were talking about this. You were sort of talking about startup stereotypes and this whole issue about money and bootstrapping and getting funding and so on. But it is the first thing that people think about.
Yeah, I guess it's the most common theme. And I think going back to startups, what usually tends to be categorized as technology startups in particular, which are notorious for raising money. And just personally, we found from our own experience, there's many other ways to do things like pre-sales to try and get cash in before raising money. So, you could go to your customers and for example, we run a vocational school which places students in careers within machine learning. So we go to 3 companies and saying, we're going to give you exclusive access to these students if you hire them, but we want the money up front, and we'll give you a talent pool every year, and you'll have exclusive access to see them before anyone else. Can you commit to giving us 20 people's worth of hiring right now, and then in the future it's going to be much cheaper for you. So there's various ways of doing that, and I've actually heard this myself from another podcast. A great guest called Ryan Beagleman from America is another founder, but he talks about how he's built all his career basically on doing those pre-sales to the point where he's now bought the largest ski resort in all of America. So it's quite interesting, the various plans that you can do that. And I also think it kind of determines when you're starting a company. We've been asked numerous occasions by many people is, what's the goal here? Is it an exit? Is it an IPO? What are you trying to do? And it usually confuses our team when they start thinking in that term of, for IPO, and then we really need to be a venture-backed business to get that scale. So therefore, we shouldn't be looking at profit. We should be prioritizing growth, and that's where a lot of the confusion can come in. So if you, like Tim was saying there, if you can just make a profitable business and grow it, sustainably over time, it feels to us much more sustainable for the future.
So what are you saying to people who are listening, who are thinking they want to start a business? What are the two of you actually saying?
Well, if you're starting as made redundant, your furlough's run out, and you think, okay, I'm going to have a go at it on my own. The first thing is actually try and cut your overheads as much you can. Find some way of getting some income, even if you're stacking shelves at Tesco's or something at night, to get some revenue in, because building a business is just like building anything else. Grand designs, it always takes twice as long and costs twice as much. It's not easy, and it always takes longer, and it always costs more. So cut the costs, find some income, so you can stay in the game longer. And then it's about getting going, not fussing too much about, does your business card look right? Does your social media profiles look perfect and all the rest of it? Have you got the right strap line and all this sort of nonsense that people procrastinate over? Get talking to potential customers. Have you got something that is of value to them rather than yourself? Because actually nobody's really interested about you. It's a bit of a spoiler alert, if you like. People are only looking out for themselves. So what's the problem you solve that people are prepared to pay money for? If you don't offer value, you haven't got a basis of a business.
I think inadvertently, Simon and Mickey, we've been doing the right thing.
Well, we've done everything inadvertently.
Yeah, I just want to throw in here. At the best of times, it's really difficult to start up a new business. Most new businesses fail. Let's face it. And I think I saw a stat the other day. If they don't fail in the first year, 60% of them have failed in 3 years. And it's not just down to money, is it? It's down to inexperience of the business person. But also, and you see this in Dragon's Den all the time, bad ideas, doing things that people don't want. So if you're starting up in this pandemic, facing the biggest economic crises we've had as a country in hundreds of years, what kind of business would you suggest people set up? I think it's a high-risk strategy at this stage.
Very interesting you say that, Simon. I think one of the biggest problems people have is they're so protective over their ideas. They tend to not tell people and say, this is a secret, my grand idea. Tim highlighted on this point is actually getting out there and validating your assumptions and figuring out, do you have something of value? Do people want to pay for it? And people tend to not do that. They go ahead and make the business cards, build a great website, and then they launch. So what we tend to do is just try to get to revenue. And there's a lot of things you can do now, especially online. The barriers to actually building companies has reduced significantly, I'm sure, since my own parents were younger. And there's a lot of services you could do without even having any upfront cost. So you could do things like, there's quite a common thread of doing drop shipping, where you would buy products from a manufacturer and sell them online. And people are shifting this into drop shipping services. So if you have a brand, for example, Liz, and you have a website and say you're going to create, let's say, sketches for weddings, and you're going to sketch the bride and groom, you can list that website and get brideandgroomsketches.com and sell those. When someone purchases it, you can use a website like Fiverr, and you can outsource those services to someone else that can do it very quickly for you and sell it. So there's many low barriers to entry of building businesses, that just creative ways that people tend to not do. But I know a lot of people who have been able to get up and start it without any cost.
Barney, shut up.
He agree. I think he agrees.
I think he does.
But also, Simon, I'd say that actually starting a business in a recession is a great it's actually a great time to start a business. It forces you to
If you have the right idea. That's the point. I mean, like Christian mentioned a minute ago, wedding sketching, for instance. Well, you can't do that at the moment because there's wedding.
Yeah, but you see, ideas are worth two a penny. The whole thing is as Christian's saying, people get overprotective of their ideas. You just need to get out and try stuff. And the statistics about business failures is overrated as well, because what happens is people fail and they start up and try something else, and you learn as you go. We're taught in schools this fear of failure. You've got to get the right marks, and actually in business, if you can, and I still suffer this now. At my old ripe age, you still want to get it perfect first time. It's not. You just need to get out and do and learn.
Do you have that luxury when you're 50? And do you have that luxury during a pandemic?
Yeah, you do. Because if you're defeated before you even get out of bed, you're proverbially fucked.
Well, we are.
Well, no, because actually,
I think
because the government is closing down the economy.
I think that's the title of today's podcast. I'm not going to repeat it, but Tim, I think you've.
I mean, Tim, the reality is something really different. I mean, 10 million people are in lockdown in the country at the moment, and they are now talking about locking down the rest of the country for 3 weeks. How can you start a company in this sort of environment?
I guess you could look at markets.
Well, there are winners and losers. You see, at the moment, I'm one of the things I'm doing. I'm working in the construction industry, and the home improvement market has gone ballistic because everybody sat at home. They realise their conservatories are too hot, and then they'll find out soon they're too cold. They can't work in them, too much glare and all the rest of it. They all need converting. The people need more space, so they have extensions. You can't get a builder. You can't get building products. It's gone in a different. There are huge winners and losers in this current turmoil, and there will continue to be winners and losers. As there was a headline, isn't it? Jeff Bezos made 30% extra in his wealth over this pandemic. So lots of people do very well.
Yes, but Tim, my point is that if people don't have confidence, if people don't have jobs, be spending money in these areas, and then these areas will be affected. You're right in what you're saying. DIY is going through the roof at the moment. But at the moment, people aren't feeling the effects of this pandemic.
DIY is going through the roof.
But you mentioned a critical word there, and that word's confidence. And when you're running your own business, you've got to be able to try and work out how to keep rebuilding your confidence, because it's going to get knocked left, right, and centre. And the hard bit is when you're on your own, guess what? You are on your own. And so to rebuild your confidence when things are tough, and you're trying to put a brave face on it, then that's really tricky. But that's one of the key things about business. It's not just business, it's the personal stuff as well. And that's what we help with.
And that's a question that I was going to ask both of you. Christian, what is it that you need? What's the key to working for yourself, whether you're freelance or running your own business? Is it skills? Is it attitudes? Is it business acumen? Because let's face it, you have to do everything. You're not. It's not like you're employed and you've got a job to do. You have to do all of it: the invoicing, the marketing, the heaven only knows what. What is it you need to get you there?
It's a great, and it goes back to, there's a famous book called The E-Myth, on theory, I think, and it tends to say where businesses are started by a technician, someone who has a talent, maybe they're a programmer, and they start a company, and they don't move up to the level of being a manager and then to an entrepreneur and actually owning that business. So they tend to stick within the technical role of what they're good at, and do those things. And I think it's actually trying to take a step back and getting people who are better than you to fill those places. So I mean, for us, we were doing everything ourselves, and within a matter of months, we were able to change that over, bring in a team. And as Tim said, it's a great opportunity. Now you've got a lot of talent on the market that you couldn't have got previously, and we were able to get a great talent and place them within the business and kind of remove ourselves back a bit and actually launch the new company that we're working on currently. But I think in terms of what you need, for sure, maybe skills to get started. Maybe a passion is really all it is, and actually be persistent. And I think, going back to the point on ideas change. And the first idea you start the company with, I can't even remember what we had ideated in the beginning, is definitely not what we're working on now. And that constantly changes every day, and we iterate upon it.
Mickey, I could see, Mickey, that you wanted to come in there.
Yeah, no, I've been listening to the conversation, fascinated by it, but at the same time, it seems as there's two routes to take. One is that you come up with a good idea, push it through yourself, finance it yourself, you work your backside off to get the thing going and bring in income. The other one is, if you can build a car and tell everyone it's the world's best and bring in investors. There are two ways of doing it. I suppose they're a bit like snake oil salesmen to a certain extent, because they're selling themselves all the time. But the one thing that's astonished me this year, and I've never understood why, is the amount of confidence of the people that we've interviewed who run their own businesses, despite the pandemic, despite the state of the economy, the outlook for unemployment. They still remain and I think, why? I'm a bit like Simon in many instances. You look at the numbers and assess things, and yet the businessmen, these startup businessmen, these freelancers, are all very optimistic. I think it's wonderful. Don't get me wrong. I just wish I could show the same confidence.
I think it was cracking up there a bit, but I think you're wondering how everybody's so optimistic and confident in the face of the facts.
Yeah.
Well, if you allow yourself to be consumed by the bad news, you won't be able to operate. So it's I'm not saying it's easy to say, actually, it's not like you're pretending it's not happening. It's like, yeah, okay, there's turmoil happening, and it's only just beginning. But with turmoil comes opportunities, and you said there's two ways of going to have a great idea, or go and invent a great product. Well, actually, there's another way, and that's to go out with a market with one idea, and then as you're out in the marketplace, you realise that people don't want this idea; they want something else. So then you adapt, and provide something that actually people are prepared to pay for. And that's why what you start out doing is often not what you land out doing. But you only find that out by getting out to the marketplace. You never can think this out sitting in your back room trying to figure it out on paper. You need to get out and talk to people. And in terms of what skills do you need? I mean, you needed all of the above, and I think it probably boils down to resilience, because it's a tough old journey. You get huge highs, huge lows, and everything in between. Divorce rate in entrepreneurs is much higher than the rest of the poppy, because when things are great, it's great, and when things are bad, it's super bad. But that's part of the journey. But at least you're living life.
If Simon's right, then the divorce rate's going to go up as well.
Of course it will.
Can I just ask what
another opportunity?
Both of you, what's the best piece of advice that you can give to anybody sitting there with their redundancy money thinking, I'm going to do something myself, I'm going to run my own business?
Hang on to that money as soon as possible. Don't invest your money. Don't spend your money fast. Find revenue, as Christian was saying. Find people who want to pay some money for what you got. Then invest in something that's proven to work, as opposed to spending money on something that is unproven.
Yeah, I don't know, Liz, if I'm qualified to actually give that advice, and I refrain from giving any advice to someone who's got the redundancy package, because I'm sure it's in each individual is very different, and different ambitions. But it seems to me that hold on to your money, and there's many ways you can get started without cash injection, getting set up. So if you're passionate about something, you can make it work. And there's a lot of great resources you can follow. There's a famous company called Y Combinator in America, which is just a school for startups, and they have a startup school. And if you followed a lot of their kind of education, there's hundreds of lessons you could learn to get started. And I think that's a great place to just take this time to learn if you can. And as Tim said earlier, do anything you can. Take a part-time job, learn, maybe go work for someone there and find out what the problems are and try and build a product whilst you're in there and try and leave and sell it back to them. I don't exactly know what I would recommend to someone in that position right now.
Well, you've already given us a good idea there. Our producer will get in touch with you and ask you for the details of that site, and then we can put a link on our site. But from the point of view of the government, what does the government need to do to make sure that the business environment supports those people starting up so that they can innovate? Because let's face it, the small businesses employ the vast majority of people employed in the UK, so they need to take risks and create jobs.
But the government's already said they don't want to support small businesses. I mean, me working as a through a limited company, no furlough. As a sole player, as a model, they want people to be employed, and they're ignoring the fact that mass employment is a thing of the past. So, what they say and what they do are two different things.
Gloomy.
I mean, the Amazons, the Googles, the Fangs of the world are all paying no tax. Whilst the high street shops are paying, business rates and VAT and all the rest of it. So, the dice are stacked in favour of the very wealthy. But then that's always been the case, and it's still the case now.
Cheerful.
Christian, anything better to say than that?
I mean, I'll be honest, I think going back to Simon's point in the end, to be completely frank, I don't tend to follow the news, and I don't tend to follow what's going on in government. Coming from Northern Ireland, I'm not sure if we actually have a government at the moment, and I've never tended to follow it ever. So, I mean, the only engagement we've ever had is applying for government grants, which is just a strenuous process. It's not, you spend a lot of time writing out a grant application, which you could be spent building your business. And, it seems like the people writing these grants have never run a small business. So they're asking questions like, they're looking for years of planning in advance. Whereas, in the early stages, we're working kind of quarter to quarter, quite scrappily, trying to grow. We haven't got that 5-year plan set out right now. And, we can't really afford a copywriter, so we've never actually been successful doing those kind of things. And I tend to find that they're a huge waste of time, taking the time to do those grants.
Well, that's a rather sour note on which to leave it, I'm afraid. But we need to wind up now, because otherwise we could carry on all day. But Christian, all the best with your new venture, Schoolify, and AI Core. Keep that going.
Thank you very much. Listen, if you don't mind me, one thing I would say to anyone freelancing right now, if you have a skill and you want to share it, reach out to us on Schoolify. We're going to make that platform for anyone to actually share what they know and be able to monetize their knowledge. So the vision for us is to increase the amount of great teachers teaching, and the kind of incentive hasn't been there previously for educators. They're never really compensated enough. And what?
Yeah, that's Simon.
Yes, yeah.
I'll
be using it.
That'd be great. And our goal is to actually compensate educators like an entertainer. So we could take, if you've seen things like Masterclass for live teaching, and get people who have a skill out there and being able to monetize it effectively. So anyone that wants to reach out to me.
Christian, what about a podcast? Could you help us monetize that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's many ways, Simon, you can monetize from a podcast to your blog. There's platforms like Substack, where a lot of journalists have been moving over to and monetizing their writing. And there's lots of different verticals. If you're an individual creator, there's a surge in individual content creators and people building their own brand as an influencer. And when you see how sophisticated some of those people have got their operations set up, they have their YouTube channel they're monetizing, they have their blog they're monetizing, their podcast, they might have a product, they might do consultancy. They have a lot of services that they can offer. And I think as an individual content creator,
we will be in touch.
We will.
Pleasure.
Definitely. Thank you ever so much for that. And Tim,
Cap in hand.
Good luck with business how to. We'll put a link on our site to your site. So keep us posted as to how it's going. And
Will do.
Thank you both ever so much for joining us.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys.
There you go, Simon, Mickey. Gloomy on the one hand, but keep at it, keep trying.
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is that I have the utmost admiration for people that start their own business, and people like Christian are massively impressive and dedicated, and they deserve all the success that hopefully is coming their way. And people like them are vital for the future of the country. But they are a niche, they are a minority, and the vast majority of people will not be doing that. And I'm afraid the economic figures, the whole health pandemic situation we're in is disastrous. And I think in the UK, and I saw this maybe when I was outside the UK looking in, is in denial about what's going to happen. And I think there was a very interesting piece in The Independent this week talking about the UK being in denial about what's coming down the road. And I mean, I don't know how to sugarcoat any of this. Because if the government doesn't know, how do we know what to do?
Yeah, I suppose that's a fair point. But do you think Tim is right that the government doesn't want small businesses, doesn't want people to be self-employed?
I think there is a certain amount of truth, especially for the limited company people. I think they feel they're not paying enough tax, and they need tax. I don't think it's sort of like there's ideology against them, but they want people to be employment, so they get their PAYE basically.
Mickey, you're nodding.
I think what they're saying is quite true. I think that the tax man does have a downer on small companies at the moment. The belief is that they don't pay tax, and if you can't get it out of companies, you'll get it out the small ones. The trouble is the tax laws in are too complicated. I mean, but I don't think it's a problem the government can solve itself. I think it's got to be done globally, because these internet companies have changed everything. You can't tax traditional retailers into the floor and let the others get richer by the day. It's just not going to work.
Well, that's the last word from you. The last word from me is that all of this is affecting people's mental health and well-being. People are getting really anxious about running their businesses, whether they'll survive, anxious about work, whether they'll have jobs. And so we've decided that we'll have a monthly, probably, mental health and well-being in business podcast, and the first one of those has been recorded. It should go on the site this week, so please do look out for that. And if there's anything you'd like to tell us about your business or about your thoughts on business and self-employment in the UK, then our email address is contact@backinbusiness.org.uk. You can find us on LinkedIn, or we're on Twitter at business_backin. And next week we'll be talking about more topical business issues, so see you then.